Anna Johnson with
Sure.
Politico.
Hi.
Hi. You mentioned a couple specific concessions that you got from Kim, the return of remains and the destruction of the nuclear site. And I know you said that was
and
an
much
add-on.
more, and much more.
Yeah, I know you said the last thing was an add-on and it wasn't in the agreement, but that he gave you his word. If he doesn't follow through on these things, what are you prepared to do in response, and will you lose faith in this process?
No, I think he'll do it. I really believe that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this. I really believe, and it was really the engine testing site, in addition to all of the other things that they've agreed to do. It was they have a very powerful engine testing site that, again, we're able to see because of the heat that it emits. And yeah, I'm able to. I'm very happy. I'll tell you what. I'm very happy with those 2 points, the 2 points you mentioned. But I think you might be referring to the thing that's not in, which is the engine testing site. I think honestly, I think he's going to do these things. I may be wrong. I mean, I may stand before you in 6 months and say, "Hey, I was wrong." I don't know that I'll ever admit that, but I'll find some kind of an excuse. Okay, one more. Come on.
But
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, sure.
Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jennifer Chen with Shenzhen Media Group China. I just would like to know, will you call Chinese President Xi when you come back to D.C.
Yes.
To discuss about achievements you made today with
Yes.
Chairman Kim? And
I will.
what's your expectation about China's role to accelerate the process to establish a long-term peace mechanism?
Well, my expectation about China is that China is a great country with a great leader and a friend of mine. And I really believe that he's happy that we've made this kind of progress. And I've heard from him. But I will be calling him very shortly, maybe even before I land. Okay? And I have to say, and the United States is a great country. And we have set records economically, over $7 trillion in net worth addition to what we have. And we are almost twice the size, the economy of the United States. Nobody talks about this because you do hear a lot about China, rightfully so. But the United States now is almost twice the size of the economy of China. We have a great country, and we're on a correct path. Okay, one more, that'll be it. Oh, South Korea? Where's South Korea? I think you deserve, go ahead, go. You deserve one, yes. You deserve one.
I've got two questions for you, Mr. President. First, you mentioned earlier that you're going to talk with South Korean President Moon Jae-in over the phone. What do you plan to discuss with him?
I just want to tell him about the meeting, very successful, and he'll be very much involved in the final negotiation. He's a very, very fine gentleman, also a friend of mine, and I look forward to speaking to him. He'll be very happy when he hears about, I've already sent word to him about what happened. I sent the document to him, actually, and all of the details behind the document. So I'll be talking to him very shortly.
If I may ask another question, in signing the peace treaty, do you plan to work this out with North Korea's Chairman Kim only, or what do you think about the involvement of South Korea and China as the signatories?
I'd like to have them involved also. There's a question as to whether or not we're supposed to or whether or not we legally have to. I don't care. I think it would be great to have China involved and also, of course, South Korea. Okay. Mike, do they have a transcript? They probably have a rough transcript, which you can give us if you have one. No, they didn't record it. I don't think they recorded it. Are there any recordings of it? I wish there were, because it is interesting stuff. Say it. I don't. We probably have some notes or something, but they have actually detailed notes, I would imagine. But we had a great conversation. It was a very heartfelt conversation. Yeah, well, I don't have to verify because I have one of the great memories of all time, so I don't have to. Okay. Okay. Yeah, but I don't want to discuss it. But what we did is we've had numerous discussions. We've had very important relationships established at Mike's level and other levels. In fact, a couple of people are here from, as you know, from North Korea. They're in the room. We have a few people in the back also from the room. So when we went into this final agreement, very importantly, we really didn't go in cold. We went in with tremendous relationship and tremendous knowledge, and I think that's why we got it done. So I'm going to head back. I don't know about you folks, but it's been a long time since I've taken it easy. So now we can take it a little bit easy, and then the work begins again. And I appreciate everybody being here. I hope we've answered your questions. And thank you very much. And sort of congratulations to everybody, because this is really, to me, it's a very important event in world history. And to be really true to myself, I have to add, I want to get it completed. So Mike, our whole team has to get to work and get it completed, because otherwise we've done a good job. But if you don't get the ball over the goal line, it doesn't mean enough, okay? So thank you, and sort of congratulations to everybody in the room. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated while the President and his travel pool departs.
From WBRN Radio and on the Boston Red Network, the title of our episode is The Singapore Summit, the End of Wilsonian Foreign Policy. This was the foreign policy of the racist Woodrow Wilson. It has abruptly ended. We start this broadcast off with the final press statement of DJ Trump in Singapore. And we'll end it with an interview by Chris Como of Dennis Rodman, the peacemaker, the basketball player that went to the Democratic Republic of Korea 5 years ago. Several times he met with Chairman Kim and was despaired. In fact, he came back, as he said in the interview, and tried to present his case to the then President Barack Obama, and Barack Obama had nothing to say to him, period. And he was threatened. He had to literally hide out in his own house for 30 days. The tremendous costs. Some of the basketball players that he took along actually lost contracts, so they would jeopardize those that were still playing in the NBA or wanted to play in the NBA. This is many times the political cost of doing, quote-unquote, the right thing. The atmosphere was different. President Obama was still saddled with the racist Wilsonian foreign policy. And there was really no way to escape from it. He attempted to do some things, a more enlightened version, let's say, but at the same time, the criticism from the right wing that was racist, isolated, and hindered President Obama, and at the same time, at Foggy Bottom, where one Hillary Rodham Clinton, known as the Monster, presided and ran their own foreign policy counter to what President Obama was trying to achieve. They continuously tried to sabotage President Obama. That was a leftover regime of the neocon-type operators that were operating there. You had Wilsonian foreign policy. You had the type of foreign policy that was enunciated by none other than the Scoop Jackson, the late Scoop Jackson of the world, the late Daniel Patrick Moynihan. These people were the spokesman for this calm and neoliberal movement. I was just looking here at the book America Alone. That is by Stefan Harper. He is the person that is the subject of many pieces as being the spy in the DJ Trump campaign, a known CIA operative, and many of these foreign policy types are in fact the CIA operatives teaching at Cambridge University and various other places. I think we ran into him at the New School. He gave seminars not only at Cambridge but all over the world in a foreign policy or foreign relations, whatever you want to call it, which itself is a slant to the West. And so what has happened now with the Singapore summit and this new agreement that DJ Trump was able to get is, as Dennis Rodman say, a starting point. DJ Trump has said he will end the war games on the Korean peninsula. That's very important, both symbolic and from a practical, political, and economic standpoint, that the Democratic Republic will not feel threatened by these outside forces. Now, what has to be worked out is this so-called program of denuclearization. This will not take days or weeks. It will perhaps take years. There's a timetable drawn up, but they have already started. The Democratic Republic of Korea under Chairman Kim. They have started down the path of it, and there are negotiations going on now with the Korean government in the south, so to speak. This war has been going on for 70 years, literally. It was never ended, and now they will attempt to end the war. Now, once that happens, the demilitarized zone itself will be a phased-out situation, no doubt. And guarantees, now that is very, very important. There has been a reference to the so-called Libyan model. Under the late Colonel Gaddafi, who was murdered by rightist forces sponsored by the U.S., the Mossad, the British, and various others, had given up his nuclear weapons and sent them to Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Literally. But the problem there was the Libyan government did not have concrete guarantees. What we mean by concrete guarantees, they had some peace treaties. They had one with even the former Soviet Union, but it was a weak treaty. So what has to happen now is a treaty that is comprehensive, that is backed up with the parties in the region, i.e. the Russian Federation and China. And of course, China is backed up by the Red Army. Now, what that basically means is, if they denuclearize the Korean peninsula, there won't be any foreign powers mixing in. And we don't want to leave Japan out of this. And there has to be a clear understanding of what will happen if they attempt to mix in. Tokyo will disappear into the sea, and any others. And now once that's understood, that is the whole reason you have nuclear weapons, going back to Cuba and the so-called missile crisis in Cuba, when missiles were moved into Cuba in a defensive position. Now the crisis finally ended when the Soviet Union was able to negotiate a settlement that they would remove their missiles if the U.S. removed missiles from Germany, and at that point the federal part of Germany. But it is much more complicated today because we are moving beyond just nuclear weapons. They're moving to another class of weapons, more stealth bombers, stealth drones, etc., that type of technology, and other types of armaments that are being produced. So we're not just talking about nuclear weapons. We're talking about weapons that can nuke nuclear weapons. And when you get into that ball game, that is the next stage going on here. And you heard various references to the G7. I was just looking at an article here by Robin Wright. She's been around a long time. She used to write lots about the Nicaraguan conflict, but nonetheless, she's writing here in the New Yorker. We won't read it all. Feuding with the Allies, Trump may need success in Singapore more than Chairman Kim. Well, this, let me see, when did she write? She wrote this on the 10th. He has had the success, and it's a typical business type ploy, where he promoted Chairman Kim up to equal status with him. Chairman Kim is projected to the world, taking selfies, going amongst the people, people shouting that we love Chairman Kim. Well, that's all to DJ Trump, literally, to defuse this situation and decriminalize Chairman Kim and legitimize Chairman Kim to the world. Now, you have to understand, and you see some of this in, say, the Washington Post, how they wrote their article, and even an interview by Chris Como with Dennis Rodman, the labeling of Chairman Kim as a, let's see, we can get here, a totalitarian leader. Now, this is from the racist Wilson foreign policy there. This is Ann Giron and Philip Rucker writing in the Washington Post. This is an analysis of it. I go to say here that President Trump shook his hand for 13 long seconds. How they know that? Patted him on the back, led him down a red carpet. The leader, Chairman Kim, could be considered the world's greatest human rights abuser now and totalitarian collector of nuclear weapons. But they met for the first time on Tuesday, and President Trump declared it an honor. Now, this whole thing about human rights, the Washington Post should just take this out because of continual police profiling of African Americans, Latinos, and other people within the country, the outright murders of people within the country, and not only that, the recent Supreme Court hearing that people can literally be taken off the voter rolls. Now, that is not a democratic idea. Scrub, they call it, from the voting rolls. In other words, have to register again. That's not a democracy at all. So when you use these kinds of words, they are empty words. You say totalitarian. Well, in this country, theoretically, there are two political parties, but at the same time, some parts of the party had been very close together until Donald Trump came along with his new, more nationalistic stand, Make America Great Again or whatever, had moved from the Wilsonian foreign policy because they needed to. They could no longer go with that arrangement. It's the same thing with where the G7 is. It is a new day, no doubt about it. So those leaders in Canada were left there around the table, gathered around DJ Trump in a master-slave relationship, begging, as they say, scraps from the masters at table. They didn't get any scraps. He went off, left them. He decided to cancel the communique and left those clowns just running around there barking. And at the same time, in Canada, Trudeau said, well, we can compromise. Well, that's a weak position. There's no doubt about it. So DJ Trump did what he needed to do by elevating Chairman Kim, as he called him, His Excellency Chairman Kim, and elevating himself on his road to a Nobel Peace Prize. Now, he needs to get another installment in there, is a Mideast peace program, which could be simply done by reaching a deal with the Palestinians. Once he reaches a deal with the Palestinians, the Zionists will come on board because they fear DJ Trump. There's no doubt about that. So the situation is that would be realign things. You have in Syria, that game is being closed out daily. VI Putin basically was subcontracted out to him. They have literally did a scorch and burn program, eliminating ISIS from the face of the earth, the so-called ISIS Islamic State, which in fact they invented. But the situation is, you don't hear about them. They don't get in a newspaper anymore. So those are some of the so-called hot spots that are out there. Still, there has to be an accommodation with the Iranians. So there's some of these spots that should have been literally plugged up long ago. Not a very good diplomatic term there, but it can be, and basically that is DJ Trump's strategy, is to get it off of his sheet and move more troops out of those countries including Japan, and thus save billions of dollars that he can use for whatever programs he has going there. So those are some of the things that are in the works. And the Post just basically says that Trump handled these negotiations like a real estate deal. Well, it was not a real estate deal. It was a totally different situation. DJ Trump will turn with 72, and Chairman Kim is 34. They don't know how old he is, but anyway, nonetheless, the next situation will be eventually Chairman Kim will come to the U.S., and DJ Trump will greet him at the quote-unquote White House. So things are moving, and at the same time, with the so-called traditional allies, they're being revisited, downgraded, humiliated, and they've already done this. And I noticed that looking at Gallup here, DJ Trump is now at 42. Now, Gallup is the premier guidepost for polling on presidential approval. And disapproval, of course, is at 52. But that does mean that some things are moving ahead here, no doubt about it. And incidentally, while we're on some polling here, the governor's race in Maryland, Ben Jealous, our own Ben Jealous, is tied 16-16 with Baker. That's on the Democratic side there in Maryland. There is no excuse, being Maryland being a Democratic state, for having Larry Hogan in the governor's chair in Maryland. So what needs to be done here is get this primary business out of the way. And once that is done, an article in the Baltimore Sun here, we'll quickly look at it as we wind down our forecast. And let me see, when is that primary here? Voting advantage, but unfortunately, some Democrats are confused at what they should be doing. And Baker being in the race also, a little different situation. Ben Jealous is running as a Bernie Sanders person here for things like the minimum at $15 an hour, legalization of cannabis, a 29% increase for teachers, free community college, and state-run healthcare system. Those things are being done in many states, period. Now, this Baker character is being endorsed by the same types like Chris Van Hollen and the former governor Martin O'Malley. That tells you who he is. He's out of Prince George County. He is the establishment person there in Maryland. This is what 500 people in this particular poll that has appeared here. And I was trying to get the Maryland primary. This is the Democratic field. And of course, they will go into November. And sometimes in an article, you don't see what you are looking for at the same time. But it should appear right away, but it evidently is not here. A quarter of Democratic voters say they plan to support Hogan in November when he seeks to be the first Republican governor since 1954 to be reelected. That's the history of Maryland. And this guy has a rotten program, period. And that's, I'm not sure why some Democrats are supporting him. It's an unfortunate situation with this Hogan character and where he is. Let me just see if we may not be able to get this information here. I guess we won't. But for some very strange reason, this article does not say when the primary is. And let's see if we can find it here. And well, the poll was conducted the 29th of May to June 10th here. And we don't, this is probably part of the problem here, but we don't have a lot of polling, period. See if we can find the date here. Okay. The Democratic primary for seats in Maryland's state senate and house is on June 26. I suppose that is where it is. And this is the State House. I'm not okay. Utilize a closed primary. All right, so we do have that up here and the requirements to vote in it. So I'm assuming it is later June. I had looked at it earlier as to where Ben Jealous is, and this is some of the latest polling here with all these characters in here. This is University of Maryland. It was published on the 5th. Here, the Baltimore Sun University Baltimore poll released on Tuesday, and the University of Maryland poll was released on the 5th. So two different polls going here. The Gomez research poll conducted the 4th to the 10th, very tight race. Baker at 25%, Jealous at 23%. Basically what some of these other polls have been saying all along here is a fairly tight race. Evidently it had moved from 12 or so, founded Baker leading, let's see. Oh, this is in Prince George County. This is his county, 32 to 12. Some of the little things here, tidbits, and one of the strange things is here, they don't, okay, anyway, the election will be on the 26th of June. We finally found it out. Let's do the sports now and get out of here in one piece, so to speak. We have, of course, Major League Baseball, and this was on the 11th. The Red Sox were at the Orioles, a 12-inning game there, and the Red Sox shut out the O's in Camden Yard 2-0. The Giants and Marlins 7-5 over the Giants. The Blue Jays and Rays in the Florida Rays 8-4. Cleveland and the White Sox on the south side of Chicago. Cleveland shut out the White Sox. The in 11, the Cubs and Brewers in Milwaukee. Cubs are 7-2 there, and Rosario was the winner. Anyway, the Padres and Cardinals in St. Louis. Cardinals win a game 5-2 in St. Louis. The Pirates and D-backs in Arizona. D-backs 9-5. And finally, the Angels and Mariners in Seattle. The Mariners 5-3. So that does it for sport and our production here. The Singapore Summit, the end of Wilsonian foreign policy on the 12th of June, 2018, from WBRN Radio and on the Boston Red Network. Incidentally, we are doing this with BR on the World, and we started our first broadcast with BR on the World yesterday. So all those will be available over our channels
Well, in my heart and soul, when I first went to North Korea, I was very honored to even be selected to go there. And once I went to North Korea, I was didn't really understand what the old situation was as far as being over there. And when I first met Kim Jong Un, I was more like, I didn't know what to expect. You know, I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what he represented. I didn't know if he was someone important. But I knew something was going on. But once I got familiar with the culture and the situation over there, I got really used to being there. And I felt like I was at home.
Now, you know both men. You've spent time with the North Korean leader. You've spent time with Donald Trump. How do you think the two men size up in terms of how they might get along?
Well, I think the fact that Donald Trump would understand the fact that the people of North Korea have a heart, they have soul, charisma, and they love each other. And I think the fact that Kim Jong Un and his family understands that. I think that President Trump should understand the fact that the reason why the Marshal of North Korea respects Dennis Rodman, the fact that he trusts me, and I gave him something for his birthday. And I thought I couldn't pull this off. And I said to him on the day before his birthday, I said, I'm going to give you a present. And he said, what is that? I said, I'm going to bring a basketball team, professional basketball team to you. He said, can you do that? I said, yes, I can. Even though I knew I couldn't do it, I said, if I fail now, it's going to be a problem. So basically, I got a lot of people together. I got Popcorn here, helped me out, my sponsor. Thanks to those guys. And it happened, and Kim Jong Un came to me and said, Dennis, you know what? This is the first time someone's ever kept their word to me and my country. And I looked at him, I always got emotional. I said, wait a minute, hold on. He said, someone's never kept their word to you and your country? He said, yes, this is the first time someone's ever suggested that. And I came through, and I think that he really appreciated that, the fact that he's not normally hearing someone that's trustworthy. And I think that country is normally hearing people that's always lying, deceitful, and not trustworthy. And I think that if Trump goes in there with a great heart, with his heart on the table, and let Kim Jong Un see him, really emotional as far as like speaking to him. It ain't got to be about war. It ain't got to be about hatred or what happened in the future or in the past. The past. We'll move on to the future. And I've told people about Kim Jong Un. He's all about the 21st century. He's trying to progress his country. And Donald Trump is going to do a great job is try to reach out and make sure that our hands, Americans, our hands are always open, because as Americans, we have let so many people around the world join us to be happy in one country, that's the United States. And now we have really put ourselves on a line to reach out to North Korea, and they've been so gracious to me, my family, and the United States. So let's make this happen. If Trump could pull this off, more power to him.
Dennis, did Kim reach out to you, or any of his people reach out to you, the president's people, anybody reach out to you for insight into the other side?
Well, you know what? I've talked to those guys the last 5 years.
Which guys?
And I talked to Kim Jong Un and an administration over there 5 years ago. And he asked me 5 years ago, we sat down for lunch. And he sat down and asked me, hey, Dennis, I would like to ask you three things. If you go back to tell the President of the United States these three things, and I would be willing to talk to him. And it's a true story, and I got my people here that was there that heard the conversation. He said things like, if they can move the ships back from South Korea, I would do what I have to do to listen. If you can move certain things or do certain things, I will listen. My ears will be open. And I tried to do that to Obama. And Obama didn't even give me the time of day. I asked him, I said, I have something to say from North Korea. He just brushed me off. But that didn't deter me. I still kept going back. I kept going back. I showed my loyalty and my trustworthy to this country. And I said to everybody, I said, the door will open.
I remember you saying it. I remember you saying it. Let me ask you something. Does Kim understand English, Dennis?
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. When I said those things, when I said those damn things, when I went back home, I got so many death threats. I was sitting there protecting everything. And I believed in North Korea. And when I went home, I couldn't even go home. I couldn't even go home. I had to hide out for 30 days. I couldn't even go home. But I kept my head up high, brother. I knew things were going to change. I knew it. I was the only one. I never had no one to hear me. I didn't know one had to see me. But I took those bullets. I took all that. I took everything. Everyone came at me, and I'm still standing. And today is a great day for everybody. Singapore, Tokyo, China, everything. It's a great day.
It is a great day. This is a historic day.
I'm so happy.
You were saying to me years ago that you thought this would happen. And I want to let you be ready for me to ask you another question. I know you're very emotional about this.
Go ahead.
This is what I want to know. I want to know, well, you're an emotional guy. You feel very deeply about things. People who've been around you understand that.
Right.
Why did you feel so strongly that you needed to make something happen for North Korea? There's so many places you could have gone in the world that have, a much easier path to peace than North Korea, given the record of human rights abuses and other practices of this despotic regime. But you chose North Korea. Why?
Well, I feel like I said, I was very naive when I went over there. I didn't understand and expect all the things I was getting when I went over there. They said, do you realize what you was doing, Dennis, when you went over there? I said, no. I thought it was just another one of those things. I was just doing some charity event. I knew nothing about North Korea. I just thought I was going to play basketball and just treat the people and be happy, and that was it. But it turned out to be so much more bigger than what I thought. And I felt the fact that, just listen to the people, seeing the kids, seeing the people there, and just meeting the regime, Kim Jong Un, and the whole marshals and everybody. I just felt like I just fell in love with the country from day one. And I feel like that, I guess I owe it to myself, and the people around the world. You know what? I'm not in here. I'm not in this for no money. I never started it for no money. This is not about Dennis Robb being the greatest person in the world that lead these two people together. It has nothing to do with that. I just wanted to see it get done so we all can live good together.
Well, here's the first
hatred,
day.
No more hatred.
Here's the first day. Let's see where it goes. Let me ask you something. You talk about speaking with Kim Jong Un. Does he understand or speak English?
The one thing about him, though, I always say about him, he's more like a big kid, even though he's small. He's more like a big kid, but he loves to have a good time. And I was saying last night or this morning that he was going around taking selfies and stuff like that. And I was saying that this guy wants to be around the world. He wants to come to America. He wants to enjoy his life. He wants his people to enjoy his life. But I think that the fact that he doesn't have the tools, and maybe the politics of this whole meeting is just going to happen. I think this is going to change a lot. And I hope the fact that President Trump can understand, knowing that Kim is trying to reach out and trying to get in the 21st century.
That's the big question. I want to ask you about that in a second, but let me just get an answer to this. Do you think he speaks or understands English?
Well, I think he understands bits and pieces. If you talk about basketball, yes, he understands that.
So you think it's about what he wants to talk about? Do you think he's studied English?
I can say one thing. I think people know that Kim Jong Un is not a dumb man. I think he's understanding from his grandfather and his father. I think that he's trying to protect his people. He's trying to protect his honor and his and everything that has to do with his country. But like I say, that's respect. That's respect. Nothing's going to happen overnight. It's going to take time.
100%. 100%.
If Kim Jong Un and Donald Trump understand that, if they understand the fact that if we just sit there and have a smooth, a comfortable relationship, smile, laugh, joke a little bit, okay, great. It ain't got to be war. It's got to be something that everyone can be comfortable about.
Right.
And I know this meeting is going to be a great meeting.
Well, that's the hope, Dennis. We'll see where it goes. It had a good start. They did the handshake. There was good body language. They said the right things. It's all perfunctory at this part. It's the opening ceremony, and we'll see what happens when we start getting reports about the actual policy negotiations. But you talk about the Kim Jong Un side and North Korea side. Did you hear from the White House at all today?
Well, yes, I did. But and the good thing about it, yes, Donald Trump reached out. He called his secretary, and she called me and said, Dennis, Donald Trump is so proud of you. He thanks you a lot. And that means a lot. because after all these years, the fact that I somewhat has something to do with this North Korean situation, but I don't want to take any credit where credit is due. I think we all need to take credit. And I'm just here. I'm just so thankful to be here. I'm glad the fact that this is happening. The world saw it. I saw it. My kids saw it. So you know what? It's just hope for the best. We don't need a miracle. We don't need a miracle. We just need the doors to be open so we can start fresh and make this a better place in the world, baby. That's it.
Well, look, sometimes it does take a miracle. I mean, you're dealing with some really tough things on the table here. I know that you've had good experiences with the leader of North Korea, and this is a nice moment. I'm not looking to get into it with you again, but now things you didn't know then. There's a lot of violence.
Right.
There's a lot of negativity, and it all stems from your friend, the ruler of North Korea. This man isn't all selfies and smiles. He's responsible for the deaths and hardship of a lot of people. How can you be sure he wants something better than what he is right now?
Well, as we know, Chris, the fact that, I'm not a politician. I'm not sitting there trying to fight the fact that, I'm on his side 24/7. I'm not doing everything right to say the right things to make him look like a better man, a better person. I've never been like that. I've always been like down the middle. Here it is, He's a good friend to me. That's what I look at. I don't see the politics of this whole situation. I don't want to see that. I want to see that to go away. I want us to see us get along, to have a handshake, to have a smile, have a glass of iced tea. Just talk to each other friendly. I don't need to worry about the war stuff and all the stuff that's going on. I don't know anything about that. I just want to do one thing, bring force to North Korea and try to bring that connection with us to North Korea. That's it, sports. Everything else should be Donald Trump's hands and people in the White House hands. I'm out of it. I'm just so happy just to be here, man, and to see everyone in the world get emotional like I did, cry to see it really, really happen. And Donald Trump should take a lot of credit for this because he went out the box and made this happen. So anyway, I want to say one more thing before I leave. Can I say one more thing?
You can say whatever you want. Go ahead.
Okay, so can I thank some people, though, while I'm here? Can I thank some people?
Yeah, go ahead. But let me ask you something. Don't go on a whole tour about it, but I want to ask you something else. But thank somebody if you want to thank them. Go ahead, Dennis.
All right, so, I just say thank, all the good people that's really stood by me, Darren Prince, Vo, all the guys that went with me, North Korea. I'm thinking Chuck Daly, I'm thinking Phil Jackson, I'm thinking Jeannie Buss, I'm thinking, Pete Giannopoulos, I'm thinking Eddie Vedder, the Pro Jam, everybody that supported me through all these things. So, I think my kids, they still with me after all these years, all the things I've done up and down, they still with me. I just want to thank everybody, man. And plus, I'm thinking these guys at Popcorn that supported me through this whole venture.
I got you. We see the shirt there. You got a good outfit. You got Trump on the top. You got Popcorn on the bottom. Let me ask you one more thing. You think there's any chance that you might have a role in this process? Has anybody reached out to you or given you reason to believe that whether it's the North Koreans or it's the Americans, that they may reach out to you as some type of resource here, something that is part of this mix going forward?
Well, you know what? Like I said, that's not my job. I wish that the fact that people would quit putting me in that title role, the fact that I should be involved with this whole politics stuff. I just want to be involved with the sports aspect. And if they can use me in that direction, maybe I can have some type of common sense to shine some light on what's really going on in North Korea. If Trump want to come ask me about certain things, he'll probably figure it out today, and I hope he does. But if he want to ask me one-on-one, I'm willing to do it. So, like I said, I know a lot of things, but like I said, this is Trump and Kim Jong Un's day. This is the world's day. It's not my day. I just came here because I wanted to see face-to-face in my own eyes. So thank you guys for having me on in the world. Thank you guys. I'm going to do more important things down the road. Please.
Well, Dennis.
Step behind me.
Be
behind me.